Hey there, and welcome to the Game Manager, because no one starts off as a master. I've seen a lot of videos floating around about common mistakes newer game masters might make when they start running games. However, there are very few of them that tell you how to address them once they have been committed. Because the truth is, no matter how experienced you are as a game master, you will eventually make a mistake. And you need to be ready and know how to address them once they have happened. Today, I will talk to you about 3 types of mistakes. The first one refers to rules misunderstandings, or perhaps outright rules errors, where you did not understand how the system was supposed to be run, where you made a wrong ruling when trying to decide on a situation, and that affected the game in some way. The second one refers to mistakes regarding the adventure, or mistakes regarding the overarching plot. Perhaps you just made an adventure that wasn't really that fun, or you are sending your players towards a place that they probably shouldn't be going, but this is your fault as a game master. And the third one is social mistakes, or mistakes that happen on the game table that affect the relationships between 2 or more players, or the players and the game master. Now, let's talk about the simplest one to solve and also the most common, and that is rules mistakes. Perhaps you are new to the system, perhaps there is this really unusual situation that came up and you were not really sure how to solve it. Well, these are the steps that I follow to solve a mistake of this kind when they come up. First, I analyze the mistake. And what I mean with that is analyze what effects it had. If it was a minor, major, or game-changing effect, first of all, and then if it was beneficial or detrimental to the players. What do I mean by this? Let's say you allowed your player to hit an enemy they shouldn't have been able to hit, and this made an encounter slightly easier for them. This is a minor effect and a beneficial effect. And we can say the opposite. Perhaps an encounter was not supposed to be as tough, but you misread the monsters or the enemy's stat block, and that caused it to be significantly more expensive resource-wise, and thus your players needed to take a rest sooner. These are both very minor effects. They won't affect the game going forward, and we will all be over them in perhaps 20 minutes after the event. So my advice with these ones is, if they were beneficial, always just let them go forward. If they were detrimental and they have any consequences, for example, you broke a player's weapon or a player lost something that they valued in their character, perhaps talk to them and say like, hey, this happened, but maybe you can get that super cool gun again in the next town or something of the sort. Just make sure that it is not ruining your players' fun. And as long as that's the case, you can just let it slide or find a fix that addresses that specific issue. Now we have the major issues. If it was major and beneficial, and if the outcome is fun, and this is a very subjective thing, if the game will be somehow enhanced by this. Let's say, for example, that you allowed your players to acquire a house that they will be using as a base of operations going forward too early in the game. If it doesn't affect your game in a significant way, like if this doesn't change everything you have prepared, and if this doesn't make your game something that you will stop enjoying, and it does make it so that they will enjoy it more, just let it slide. If that's not the case, then you can try to address it with them like, hey, I messed up here. Can we still do this? I have prepared, and then maybe we can come here and just give me a bit of time to make up for this situation, and we can keep going. If it was major and detrimental, for example, something that led to a character becoming significantly injured, losing a limb, as there are rules for that in several game systems, or a character death, or a major item loss, or a very liked NPC loss, you are in a pickle, because you have to either retcon what happened and return to that point, or just keep going. And my advice is stop the session right there as soon as you realize and talk to your players. Tell them, hey, I just realized I messed up. This is what happened and this is what should have happened. What do you all think? Just take that screen down for an instant and open that communication right there and right then. This way you will get some feedback from your players. Perhaps they say, yeah, let's just retcon this and start over from this point. Or maybe they're just okay with what's happened and they can be like, hey, no, this happened, we're okay with this, we can just keep going. But if it's detrimental for the group, talk to them. Perhaps this can become a fun moment. Perhaps the loved NPC's death can become a new motivation for your party. Regardless, talk to your players and don't just wing this, because you might misunderstand the situation gravely, and it's much better to have their perspective on this than to just play it by ear. Finally, there are the game-changing mistakes. These can be, for example, making a ruling that makes one of your characters ridiculously powerful, in a way that this will fundamentally alter the way that you prepare encounters. This can be in giving them some items that they shouldn't have, but that will effectively break the game by making them unbeatable by level appropriate encounters. And they can also be detrimental in the sense that, hey, maybe you didn't take into consideration something regarding a player's armor or equipment that would have saved them from imminent death, and that character is dead now. In this case, once again, you stop the session and you talk to the players like, okay, I messed up. This is gonna become a problem very soon and I'm seeing this, or I messed up, your character should be fine, and I'm sorry if you lost it, because a lot of players get really attached to their characters, and if they identify you as the cause for that character's death, what do I mean by this? If it was not fair gameplay and this meant something that basically changed how the game is presented to them, you need to always be open to retcon that. And just, once again, stop, talk to them. What do we do? If it's negative for them. If it's positive for them in a game-breaking way, ideally don't do listen to them, but do tell them, hey, I'm sorry I gave you this. This was my mistake. We have to take this away from the game because this will break the game effectively and the game will become significantly less fun. You can make them not feel cheated out of something by just nerfing a certain mechanic, for example. This is what I have done in some occasions. Like, I gave my level 5 players something that was meant for level 20 players, and just tell them, hey, it's cool that you have this, but perhaps your character doesn't know how to use it properly, and when you get to that point, you will become fully capable of using it to its full extent, but until then, there might be some caveats or some limitations. But do address it and do talk to them personally and explain your point of view. Like, I messed up, but this specific instance will make the game either much more difficult for me to prepare or much less fun for me to run. So just talk to them and find the best solution for the whole group. And once again, if they're okay with a negative effect, perhaps if they're okay with a character death, if they tell you, hey, you know what, it's fine, there's this new character I kind of want to play, that's okay. If they're not, be open to retcon it. This should happen less and less as you keep going and you become much more familiar with the system. However, that is my advice. Now, the second type of mistakes that a lot of game masters make is regarding the adventure. This can be perhaps not finding a satisfactory plot or an engaging plot so that the characters will want to join and go on these adventures, or perhaps making encounters that were way too easy and an adventure that was supposed to be threatening and very dangerous less fulfilling. Or an adventure that should be somewhat easy and just good times suddenly become incredibly deadly and perhaps even risking wiping the whole party. Now, each of these has a different solution. The first one, referring to not having made a plot engaging for your players, the solution to this one is talk to them. Like, a lot of times players will know what they want, and characters will also know what their objectives are. So if you didn't really have much to go on, maybe ask your players to write you their characters' motivations. Not only their backstory, also what they want from the future and what they're striving for, because this will give you a lot of ideas as to how to engage them. Perhaps a character was an orphan and wants to give orphans a good home. Maybe introduce a system in which they can rescue kids and give them a new home. Give them a house, like I mentioned earlier. Maybe a character is just obsessed with protecting their own people. Make it so that their people are somehow affected by the overarching problem that is at hand. Make it personal for the characters and talk to your players and ask them for the tools to make it personal for their own characters. The second one is what to do when an adventure was not fulfilling. In this case, just talk to them. You can just accept that you kind of made a mistake. Just tell them, hey, I messed up a bit. I'm sorry, I maybe went too soft on you all, or maybe I really didn't keep track of everything that was going on. You can just accept that you messed up. Just open that kind of communication and try to do better next time. The truth is, it's fine to accept that you made a mistake. This is true for any aspect of your life, and it's definitely true for being a game master. And the third one is what to do when your adventure is a lot deadlier or a lot more difficult than you have anticipated, and you're risking a party wipe. In that case, as soon as you realize it, you need to put the cogwheels into motion. I will make a video soon about balancing encounters on the fly, but if you can, before anything gets too grim, before it's too late to go back, maybe call it a session early, just treat it as a cliffhanger and come back to that point next session. If you need, or take a break. If your group takes breaks between sessions, just stop the game, give yourself some time to think, and analyze the situation where it's at the moment, and try to find a solution before everything goes down. Or, if you have realized what's going on, and it's still not too late, you can also just stop the game and tell them, hey, this is probably gonna wipe the party. The campaign is likely going to be over if we keep going like this. What do you all want to do? Your players know when you go easy on them. Your players know if the big evil monster suddenly just runs away for no reason whatsoever. But this is a game. In the end, it's not about telling a super realistic story. It's not about making sure that the world is entirely living and that every single action has consequences and that bad things can just happen to people. No, we're all there to have fun. If your group is okay with that kind of dynamic, go for it, just wipe them up. And then you can tell them, hey, I kind of messed up when balancing that encounter. But if your group is not there for the big fights, for the big epic moments, you can tell them, hey, we can keep the adventure going, we can just omit this ever happened, or perhaps I can just pull this monster out, or even you can just say the monster runs away and then after the session tell them, hey, I messed up. Do acknowledge what's going on so that they don't find this as some form of precedent, because that can also become kind of tricky if they somehow believe that they have plot armor and nothing bad will happen to them regardless of how reckless their decisions. That can also become an issue. So just talk to them. Just tell them what's going on and propose a solution as a group. This is the moment when the game master screen goes down and you become a group that's just playing a game altogether. Finally, the last issue is social issues. Because in the end, all of tabletop RPGs are games in which we have to talk to each other. They are games in which we communicate, we express, we engage with each other, and we can make mistakes there as much as we can make mistakes in any other social situation. I'm gonna tell you a story. I was starting my first paid table ever of D&D. I had a group of 4 people and then a 5th person came in and they made a cleric. They made a cleric because the group kind of told them that they needed a healer, and they made a very interesting cleric that had very particular deities and was kind of chaotic and had some beef with one of the existing characters. And during that session, there was a point where the party required healing, and the cleric said that they only had healing word, which is like the weakest form of healing outside of combat for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And I say, wow, you're a bad cleric, as a game master. I at the moment kind of thought of it as joking, but then I realized that that was not it. I have just there infringed on my players' agency in creating their own characters. I had just then insulted the creation of one of my players that they probably put a lot of time and a lot of dedication into, and that lessened their experience a lot. And I realized not straight after that. I ended the session and then I was just in my bed thinking, and I realized what I had done. I was like, oh, they were kind of quiet after that. I shouldn't have said that. That was absolutely unacceptable. Regardless of if it's a paid table or a free game, that's not something you can say to others. Like, you cannot just tell someone that the thing that they put effort was dumb, because they're not there to make it super optimal. No tabletop RPG is about that. And I messed up. My solution? I texted them the next day. I told them, hey, I really messed up. I shouldn't have said this. I am so sorry. I know this probably made you feel very bad. I am so sorry for that. It will not happen again. Is there anything I can make it, any way I can make it up to you? Just gave them my sincere apology. Because that's what you do when you mess up. The next session, I opened up with, hey, with the whole group, and just told everyone, hey, I did this last session. I am so sorry for doing that. And if you ever notice me doing something similar, please let me know. It's never my intention to hurt any of your feelings. It's my intention to create a place where everyone can feel safe and we can just have a really good time. So if I ever infringe that boundary, please let me know. And well, to that player, that character ended up being changed. I'm not sure if it was me or he just didn't like playing it that much. Regardless, I understood the feelings I had caused and I addressed them, both for that particular player and for the whole table. And that is my advice. When you mess up and you insult someone, or you make someone feel bad, or you make someone just have a bad time emotionally at your table, let them know. Tell them, hey, I noticed I did this. I'm sorry, it won't happen again. And then also do the same with the whole table. Because that is how you nourish a respectful environment, by accepting one's faults and knowing how to move forward from them. How to ensure that you can do this is by always keeping a two-way communication. Make sure that your players have the trust in you to tell you when maybe you stepped on a line, or when maybe you made them feel in a way that you probably shouldn't have. Because everyone has different sensitivities. And make sure that they can tell you and they can trust you when they tell you that either you or another player maybe stepped on a line. Make sure that they can reach to you if something is going on the table that you might not be aware of. And that way you have a way to act. But the first step to do that is always be ready to accept your own mistakes and own up to them. However, the truth is, mistakes become a lot less common as time progresses, because you will become a better game master. And after a while, they won't be happening, if at all. I just want you all to have the tools to address them and to fix them when they come up. Thanks for watching. This has been the Game Manager. Remember, keep playing and keep having fun.